Greetings and salutations, all you lovely individuals. It is League Unlocked. We are back, Eric and Mark with you beauties, and nothing like coming out of a international event where the LCS is clearly a cut below some of the other teams at the event, specifically the LCK and the LPL, and we go, okay, we need some good vibes. We need some hopium for the future. So we're looking back at the biggest, best LCS wins against the LCK and the LPL. We're looking specifically at Worlds and MSI, and immediately when you see these lists on the side, you go, yeah, you really have to fish for some of these wins that the LCS has ever even gotten.
You guys ever see the movie Inception? You know, he's got that little top that he spins to make sure that he's in the correct reality. That's kind of what this list feels like, because you watch how disappointing the LCS has been against these LCK LPL challengers coming off of this MSI. You'd be forgetting that the reality is the LCS has had their moments. They've had their chances and they have had their triumphs against the LCK and LPL. Few and far between. Yes, we can admit that one if you look at the list, but absolutely some that you need to take a step back and refresh what went right, what was successful against the LCK and LPL, and why we haven't been able to build off of that is an important part as well in all of these important matchups.
And the number one thing you're going to notice is a whole lot of Cloud9 representation being that lone hope for NA on the international stage. But there were some clean games over the years that the NA squads have put together. And first and foremost, we look at Team Liquid versus LNG at 2021 Worlds. And this is this group with Gen G, LNG. You had a three-way tiebreaker. Mad Lions as well were in there. And Team Liquid were picking up wins against some of the best teams of the LCK and LPL, and the cleanest one was against LNG. It barely took them 30 minutes, and Jensen is popping off on the LeBlanc against Icon's Lissandra in this one.
Oh, yes, sirree. It is the LeBlanc for Jensen, and it's a big game from him. 6 kills on the board for that LeBlanc. Lots of power in the mid lane. This is the Team Liquid era with Alfari on the roster as well. Important thing to keep track of, playing that Gwen in the top side against Ale. And this is important because we had this matchup before. We saw Team Liquid lose to LNG, and then you get this matchup and you have it play out, and at the way it ends is the classic North America, but the reverse. We're not trading our Nexus for the Dragon. We're trading your Nexus for the Dragon.
And that's why this was a bizarre one. It's just kind of start to finish. It was clean and in control for Team Liquid, which it leaves you scratching your head even more so than the LCS losing a game, because you're going, why doesn't NA always play like this?
I think one of the big things you saw in this game as well was just how impactful Santorin was at his very best for this Team Liquid roster. One of the guys that isn't that first name billing that came to mind, right? With Alfari, with Jensen, even Tactical at that point, and how he was performing down in that bottom lane. But the key contributions, the way that he was able to play around the team and set up his teammates, Santorin at his very best was a key team player for Team Liquid.
And again, a theme that's going to go on this list is the big win can't translate to momentum, because obviously Team Liquid ends up falling in a tiebreaker and does not get out of groups. But nonetheless, that was a performance that you could tip your cap to Team Liquid. I don't think anyone was disappointed with the form and what they did at that event. Next on the list, we're going to the origins of the LCS actually showing up against the LCK. 2014 Cloud9 against Najin Shield. This is technically the first win at Worlds for a North American team against a Korean squad. This was a 50-minute banger. Ended up forcing a tiebreaker for that first seed, which Cloud9 loses. But they still got out of groups as that second seed. And this win against Najin gave you hope as an NA fan.
One of the very first upsets that we were able to get against the LCK and LPL is this one, is the origins of Cloud9 back in the day. Balls, Meteos, Sneaky, High, Lemonation. Oh, man. The old guard for Cloud9 there. And yes, the old guard, they're just getting it done for Cloud9 on the international stage. That's one of those things, again. Theme within this list is Cloud9 being that representative for North America to overcome that hurdle. This is one of the very first ones. This is one of the very first that made you believe and could see a direction for the LCS to challenge what you knew was going to be that peak, that pinnacle of what this game could be, seen from the LCK. Unfortunately, again, just like the other ones, nothing was really built off of this one. And arguably, I'd say the LCS kind of went backwards from this point for the next year or two against the LCK.
Maybe the next 3 or 4 years, honestly, after this one. This is the year that, TSM gets out against Samsung White. They face Samsung White. They don't beat them,
right.
But they end up getting pumped by them. So there were some positives for sure for Cloud9 from that series, but definitely that win against Naja and Shield, who was the team that denied SKT even getting to Worlds in 2014. So the OG Cloud9 lineup definitely had their moments on that international stage. And one of the best parts of this list is seeing just different iterations of Cloud9 pop up, because next we go to 2017 C9 against EDG in the group stage of Worlds. This is the first top-seeded LPL team that starts 0-3 courtesy of Cloud9 in that third game.
Oh, baby, El Contracto. Yes, we're winding back all the way the clock. And when it was a young, fresh-faced rookie out on the stage with Cloud9.
And he was popping off against Clearlove.
He was making some big plays, yes, and even against the veteran Clearlove on the side of EDG. You had Impact, you got Sneaky, of course, still there with the squad, making sure that the kills going up on the board for Cloud9.
And this is, Ardent Sensor meta. We're at 2017, but it was Sneaky who, listen, he played very good throughout this entire tournament. And again, the momentum, I think Cloud9 ended up needing SKT to win a game for them to clinch that second seed, and the momentum does not get carried, but they play a competitive quarterfinals against World Elite. So again, this 2017 roster Cloud9 is up there in terms of competitive level on that international stage.
They're kind of one of the very few exceptions on this where I don't think you really see that immediate downturn, we're not going to keep going trending upwards type of thing, because I think they did trend upwards into that series against WE. It just was incredibly tough, and of course, there was this pivot that came through in that series was, we're an Ardent Sensor world. What about Caitlyn? What about the Caitlyn pick? And that was obviously one that came through and was a very powerful, very kind of determining pick at the end of that series.
And 2017 was an extension of 2016, where we saw again, and we already talked about Jensen in this first game on this list multiple times, time and time again. This is why people would put Jensen ahead of Bjergsen as best mid in the history of the LCS, because time and time again, when international events rolled around, it was Jensen who was the guy stepping up and going toe-to-toe with some of the best mid laners in the world.
I think that is the one real blemish when you look back on Bjergsen's career and his dominance over North America and dominance over his rival in Jensen is that international performance, and that's where Jensen really does equal things out and maybe take an edge depending on where your value is. And we all know how important and how high that value is on an international performance. Talked about it with the Team Liquid one. Talk about this one on the Syndra, the big time performance, the big kills coming through. Another 6-kill performance from him in this game to make sure that it is Cloud9 getting the edge.
He's no longer on the Cloud9 roster, but at 2021 MSI first midseason invitational on this list, the Fudge Factor was born with the Lee Sin top getting the huge upset against RNG to begin what was almost a miracle run for Cloud9, but no tournament encapsulates the LCS more than this event, because you had the immaculate performance against RNG, and this is also the tournament where Cloud9 drops a game to Pentanet.
Oh man, this is the biggest question mark, exclamation point, question mark type of tournament for North America, to have the question marks losing to Pentanet and the rest of the disappointing performances, but still be able to rise up and show that you can challenge, you can best this type of level on the international stage. This is an RNG team. Certainly, maybe not the strongest of all the ones that you ever came across, but no slouches nonetheless. And a Xiao who roll swap up into the top side, shutting down his Jace. Yes, very good performance from the Fudge Factor in the top side. This is a great performance from him. Cannot sleep on it, though. Of course, taking a note to mention, this is Sven still as an ADC at this point down in the bottom lane with Mr. Vulcan for Cloud9. And checking into that mid lane, it is your boy, Luca the Bazooka Perks. And we are playing one of the best champions that he's got is the Zoe. That I think is one of those ones, kind of a bit of, reflection here. A little disappointed we haven't quite seen him pop off or get to use that champion quite the same way as when she was busted at the wazoo on release in the multiple weeks afterwards. This is a big game on the Zoe.
And this was an example of one of those rare games where the LCS wasn't afraid or seemed to be afraid against the LPL or LCK because they were willing to be the ones making plays. And again, a lot of it was fudge on this top lane Lee Sin in this game. But yeah, you mentioned Perks. I know in hindsight, this guy gets flamed to oblivion for his time in NA included. But there were highlight moments. I know losing to Pentanet was kind of embarrassing, but going toe-to-toe against RNG, and when you roll on to the next one on this list, it's an extension of 2021 for Cloud9 as we go to the World Championship, where they do complete that miracle run, starting with the massive win they get against Fun plus Phoenix. And Mark, they didn't just beat FPX. Perks and the boys absolutely obliterated FPX.
They demolished FPX, and this is an FPX that we got to remember the situation surrounding this and where the hype was. The hype was on FPX
tournament favorites
heading into this event. Yes, sirree. The type of form that they were showing, the dominance, the type of creativity that Doing B was able to expose in the mid lane. This was going to be it for FPX all over again. And then it started to crash down. And one of the big parts of that is this loss to Cloud9 and how drastic this loss was in the favor of Cloud9. This is one of these ones that you talked about. You mentioned, kind of the up and downs with Perks. And of course, one of the big problems is really the consistency of those ups and downs. You didn't get enough of those ups to buoy you and keep you making progress, moving up on where you think you got to be, until you got those down performances, which dragged you down, brought you right back down to the same type of levels, and you didn't make that progress. Making progress is this win against FPX, and where it pushed Cloud9 into the situation where they did have to make the rebound in their tournament. This win was a great way to start it back up.
And they did actually carry that momentum. They had the tiebreaker later against Rogue, which was an immaculate performance out of Perks on the LeBlanc eventually to clinch them into top 8, where we won't talk about what happened in the next series, but we're not talking NA versus EU. This win against FPX, and specifically, obviously, got to highlight Blabber in that head-to-head against Tien. I know Tien got flamed a ton after this tournament, but this was one of the best early games out of Blabber in the international stage.
One of the best things about this one was just really the identification early from Blabber was that, okay, Tien's a little bit off. We are absolutely rolling with what we've got going. Don't let up. Keep that snowball rolling. Keep it pressured. Keep it accelerating. Of course, Perks got involved with literally every single opportunity practically on that Twisted Fate, picking up, 12, 13, 14 or something assists in the game. It was absolutely crazy. This was really the Blabber show in this game, but it really was about Cloud9 facilitating and keeping that acceleration going on the Blabber train.
So remember the good times with Perks on Cloud9, getting out of groups at the World Championship, and the run ends there. Nothing else happened after that, but it was a miracle comeback for Cloud9 to even get out of groups. Not quite as big a comeback as 2016 MSI, the now infamous CLG versus RNG, 17K gold behind. Not only that, but it was the undefeated RNG who had already taken down SKT at the MSI group stage, and CLG comes from this massive deficit to come back and steal a win. Stixxay on the Kalista in what is still the best tournament of his career.
Oh, the most iconic tournament of his career, no question about it, is that performance for CLG. The Kalista, 11 kills, dancing, dipping, dashing, throwing a spear here, throwing a spear there, getting that rent. All of it was smooth action from Stixxay in this one. And what was so exciting, of course, is this is so early in Stixxay's career. So one of the things that you were thinking about was, all right, here it is. We've got our own superstar in the making. He's going to be able to challenge all the way to the tippy top of the LCK and the LPL. Not quite the heights that we would reach with Stixxay. Again, up and down North America.
It peaked quickly, by the end of the tournament.
you can't take away this accomplishment. All of that said, when you look back at this one and how he stepped up, how the rest of the squad stepped up, talking about Smithy on the poppy pick. How about that one in the jungle, making sure that it is a nightmare for RNG in any of the things that they wanted to get done.
Yeah, and obviously that iconic Dragon Steel out of Smithy that he was putting on this one. And, you know, again, in hometown China, at this MSI, down huge, an NA team against the undefeated RNG. One of the most unexpected, improbable, and undoubtedly best wins that the LCS has had against the LCK or LPL on the international stage. We get to the final two on this list, and these are the only two that you can talk about a best of series victory. And yes, I know you've got TSM versus World Elite from IEM, but we're focusing on Worlds and MSI, and that was a big upset. It should have been the GE Tigers anyways, but I digress. We're going to 2018 Worlds quarterfinals. Cloud9 even beating the tournament favorite RNG and defending world champions Gen G to even get to the quarterfinals was a big enough surprise, and then they proceed to 3-0 the Africa Freaks for the first ever LCS win against the LCK in a best of it Worlds.
I have very strong memories of this one. Fortunate to be in the crowd for this event, for Cloud9 getting this win. My only downside is I spilt my drink on myself as Cloud9 won that third game to take the series. So when I go up to get my picture taken with Cloud9 on the stage and I'm, kind of cheering and shouting, it looks like I've wet myself. Because
that's just how good the series was,
I'm not blaming you if you did wet yourself for this type of series, because yes, Cloud9 pulled it off and made sure that they are going to a semifinals at the World Championship. They gave us an all-Western semifinal. We'll also get a little chance to blab about that one, but that is exactly the results of a 3-0 crushing performance against the Africa Freaks. This was all Cloud9 all day, baby.
Really only the third game close in this series, and obviously we have the iconic Ornn auto attack steal on the Baron out of Rookie of the Split Licorice coming away with it. You got sneaky peak performance levels smurfing 3 games in a row on Lucian, and this is the MVP Sven Skaren. This is right before the Blabber era even begins.
That's the crazy thing, you almost think that this is only possible once you started to get Blabber in there and started to feel that explosion, that talent that he brought to the scene right away. This is MVP brother Sven Skaren out there for Cloud9, but he ain't no brother to the LPL or LCK this time. He was making sure Cloud9 was coming through. Strong performances from him throughout this event. And then you already mentioned Sneaky. Talk about that Lucian pick in that first game. My man, he was feeling good throughout this series.
And I remember going into this series, people kind of thought, okay, that's probably the best possible draw for Cloud9 to get Africa. But I don't think anyone was favoring them in the series, let alone expecting a 3-0 to the side of the LCS. So this, even though EU absolutely had NA's number at this event, it was still getting that win against the Africa Freaks. You can hear it in Freak and the rest of the casters' voices. They had been waiting so long for a series win like this, and they didn't have to wait that much longer for an even bigger upset. Next year's MSI 2019 gotta remain the biggest, most impressive LCS win against an LPL or LCK squad. TL versus Invictus Gaming. This is the defending world champions at this point. This is them taking control of game 1 until, of course, who else but Impact makes that game-saving Nico play that turns, honestly, the entire series around in game 1.
What a sentence. Impact game-changing Nico play. What is going on here?
2019 things, man.
You had to break the meta. Yes, sirree. Mr. Grandpa Tanks is not on a tank for Team Liquid in this one. He was on the playmaker, and he made it happen. At that incredible deficit as well is one of the things to keep in track for Team Liquid, where they get this turnaround, where they find the power to keep pushing through. Another series for LCS. This is an important one to keep track of, one of those ones that, again, gets lost in the shuffle of talking about the whole event, just like the Cloud9 Africa Freaks one, where you then get Cloud9 and Fnatic and they get mega blown up. Well, you dial that one up a couple more times, and that's what you get with G2. did to Team Liquid the next round through. But that does not. You got to have that separation take away from the accomplishment and the achievement of beating IG in the fashion that you were able to as Team Liquid. And I think that this is still one of those ones where it's, of course, bittersweet and a loser mentality, all these type of things. When you're looking at the mountaintop peaks of Doublelift's career, this has got to be one of the very big boost ones. One of the top, tippity-top type of mountaintops right here is looking at this achievement, this pushback, this punch-out of the LPL.
He even got to pick his iconic Vayne and get a win in this series. And, you know, TL jumps up 2-0, and then you have this rookie vintage LeBlanc performance in Game 3. And I know LCS fans worldwide saw them win that, and they go, oh, the reverse sweep. It's coming out of IG. But TL holds strong and doesn't even need 5 games to get what is probably still the biggest best-of-5 upset, maybe even in MSI history.
Jensen gets to do it on the Lux in the mid lane. You got the Skarner coming.
Galio support. Whoa.
Oh, man. This was it. This was really arguably one of the most fun times to watch the LCS and what they were able to do. Get this one where, again, no one really had the expectation for this type of upset. You had hopes for Team Liquid, given the type of strength they had shown, the accomplishments that they had built in North America. You had that hope for this team. But you still knew what IG was. This is fresh off of World Championship Invictus Gaming and what you can expect from players like The Shy, like Rookie in the mid lane, like your boy Jackie Love even. These are all the things that you were worried about. Team Liquid, no worries on the day, taking care of business.
This was a 9-1 group stage IG also that came in with full momentum, had gapped SKT in one of the matchups, were 2-0 against Team Liquid, so truly fully cemented as the underdog status, which the LCS and Team Liquid oh so often are used to when it comes to the international stage. But yeah, definitely the best of 5 wins are the highlights of the LCS internationally. They're few and far between. We got a decade plus of games to go through, and you can barely get together a list of 10 impressive LCS wins. But still, just let us have these moments where we can praise the good times over in the LCS. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you beauties. Thanks for hanging out as always, and we'll catch you on that flippity flip.